Hey, hi guys. In today's lesson, we're going to see again differences between the indefinite past and the imperfect past, okay? This is kind of a difficult topic. That's why I decided to create another video so you will understand this better with some examples, okay? So let's start. All right, here I show you the differences between the indefinite past and the imperfect past, okay? First, let's start with the indefinite past. When you have to use it, okay? When you have facts finished in a recent past, okay? For example, if you want to say you did something in a very recent past, like yesterday, then you have to use the indefinite past, okay? For example, I have these sentences. If you want to say I went to the bank, then you gotta use the indefinite past. You are talking about something you did in recent past, okay? So to say I went to the bank, in Spanish you have to say yo fui al banco. Yo fui means I went. Fui, it's the verb in the indefinite past, okay? I went to the bank. Yo fui al banco. Okay, this is your sentence in the indefinite past, and the verb in the indefinite past, it's the verb ir. In the indefinite past is fui when you're using the personal pronoun yo. Yo fui. Okay, now we have another sentence. If you want to say he ate in my house, then in Spanish you gotta say él comió, which meant he ate. Él comió. This is the verb in the indefinite past, comió, using the personal pronoun he, él, okay? Él comió, he ate, in my house, en mi casa, okay? Now you also have to use the indefinite past when you're talking about consecutive actions you did in a recent past, okay? So for example, if you want to say what you did during your day in past, then you have to use the indefinite past, okay? For example, if you want to say, I went to the bank, I went to the supermarket, and I ate at an Italian restaurant, then you have to say this in Spanish, okay? Yo fui al banco, which means I went to the bank. Yo fui al banco, went to the supermarket, fui al super, okay? I went to the supermarket, and I ate in a restaurant. Y comí en un restaurante italiano. Okay? So if you're talking about consecutive actions you did in a recent past, then you also have to use the indefinite past, okay? You also have to use the indefinite past when a new action interrupted an action you were doing, okay? So that means you have to use it after a sentence created in past progressive, okay? For example, if you want to say, I was cooking when my mom called, okay? Then you have to use the indefinite past in the action that it's interrupting, okay? In Spanish, you gotta say, yo estaba cocinando, which means yo was, estaba cooking, cocinando, okay, this is past progressive. Yo estaba cocinando when, cuando, and then this is a sign you must use the next sentence in the indefinite past, okay? Cuando my mom called. Mi mamá llamó or llamó mi mamá, okay? Yo estaba cocinando cuando llamó mi mamá, okay? And the verb in the indefinite past would be llamó. Who? My mom, okay? Now, also you have to use the indefinite past when you have a but, pero, in your sentence. You're talking about a past event, okay? But you have a but in your sentence and you're talking about something you was about to do, but you didn't do it. Okay, here I show you an example so this will be clearer, okay? So if you want to say, I was going to call you, which means in Spanish, yo iba a llamarte. I was going to, which means yo iba a, I was going to call you, llamarte, but, pero, okay, but, pero, and that's a sign. You must use the next verb in the indefinite past, okay? Pero, an emergency emerged. Surgió una emergencia, okay? I was going to call you, but an emergency emerged. Pero surgió, and this is the verb in the indefinite past, pero surgió una emergencia, an emergency, okay? So you're talking about something that was about to happen, but you were not able, and something happened that you didn't do it, okay? When you're talking about those types of sentences, then you gotta use the indefinite past, okay? Now let's go with the imperfect past. When you have to use it, when you have repeatedly actions you did in the past, okay? If you want to talk about your childhood or when you were younger or when someone was younger, okay, then you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? For example, if you want to say, when I was a kid, I played a lot, then you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? How to say this in Spanish? Cuando era niña, when I was a kid, cuando era niña, jugaba mucho. I played a lot. Cuando era niña, jugaba mucho. When I was a kid, I played a lot. Okay, also you have to use imperfect past when you want to describe how someone or something was in a very long ago. Okay, so if you want to remind how someone was, like how your teacher was, how your boyfriend was, how your girlfriend was, then you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? Here I show you an example. If you want to say, my teacher was very cute, then you gotta use the imperfect past, and you have to say in Spanish, mi maestra, which means my teacher, mi maestra was, which means era. Okay, this is the imperfect past of the verb is, very cute, muy linda. Okay, you're describing how she was. That's a sign you must use the imperfect past, okay? Era. Mi maestra era muy linda. Okay, you also have to use the imperfect past when you talk about memories of simultaneous actions you did in the past, okay? For example, if you want to say or describe what you did with your friend in a very long ago past, then you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? Here I have this sentence. My friend and I talked for hours and listened to music. If you want to say this in Spanish, you gotta say mi amiga, which means my friend, mi amiga, and I, yo, talked, and this is the verb in the imperfect past, okay? Platicábamos, okay? If you're using the personal pronoun, you're talking about us, okay? We. So if you are talking about we, then you gotta use the imperfect past. Platicábamos. Mi amiga y yo platicábamos for hours, por horas, and, which means listened to, okay, verb in the imperfect past. Escuchábamos, because you're talking about the personal pronoun we, escuchábamos music, música, okay? Mi amiga y yo platicábamos por horas y escuchábamos música. Okay, so if you're talking about something you did in the past, okay, something you did in the past with your friend, then you have to use the imperfect past, okay? Those are simultaneous actions you did in the past with someone, okay? All right, now I'm going to show you some phrases that you can find, okay, according to each form. Sometimes you will find them, so you will be aware you have to use that form, okay? So if you're talking about the indefinite past, sometimes you will listen to phrases like yesterday, which means ayer, ayer, ayer. Okay. Also, if you are listening to the phrase last night, which means anoche, anoche, it means you gotta use it. Okay. Also, you can find phrases like all day, which means todo el día, todo el día, all day. Okay. Also, you can find it when you're listening to some phrases like last year or last month, which means el año pasado. Okay, this means last year. El año pasado. El año pasado. Okay, if you want to say also some years ago, if you listen to this phrase, this means also you gotta use the indefinite past. Okay, hace unos años. That means some years ago. Hace unos años. Hace unos años. Okay? Also, if you listen to this phrase the other day, that means you have to use the indefinite past. El otro día. That means the other day. El otro día. El otro día. Okay? All right, so now let's see some of the phrases you will find or some of the phrases you gotta use when you use the imperfect past, okay? So the phrases are when I was a kid, which means cuando era niña, cuando era niña if you are a girl, niña if you are a boy, niño, okay? Instead of the A, you will have to use letter O, okay? So when you are using the imperfect past, you will use this phrase when I was a kid, cuando era niña or cuando era niño. Also, you can find as a kid, which means de niña if you're a girl, as a kid. Okay? Also, you have to use this phrase or you will find this phrase when I was younger, which means cuando era joven, cuando era joven, or also you can see de joven. Okay? This is like the contraction. De joven, when I was young. Okay? Also, you will see this phrase when I was little, which means cuando era pequeño, if you're a boy, pequeño, or cuando era pequeña, if you're a girl, which means when I was little. Okay? Also, you will listen to some phrase like every day if you are talking about past tense, something you did in the past, some long while ago, like every day. Okay? Then you have to use this phrase every day. Every day I went to school. Every day okay? When you were a kid, you're explaining all the stuff you did when you were a kid. So that means you have to use the imperfect past, okay? Also, you gotta use the phrase before, okay? If you want to explain how you were before, then you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? For example, before I was very lazy. Antes yo era muy floja. Okay, that means before I was very lazy. So if you want to say something you were before, also you gotta use the imperfect past, okay? Now let's explore some sentences so you will find this a little bit easier, okay? Let's start with the indefinite past. So if you want to say, yesterday I ate a lot, you're talking about something you did in a recent past, like yesterday, which means ayer, okay? So if you have this phrase, ayer, that means you gotta use your verb in the indefinite past. So in this case, the verb in the indefinite past is comí. Ayer comí mucho. Yesterday I ate a lot. Okay? Now, if you want to say, for example, last night I slept 8 hours. Okay? If you're talking about this phrase last night, then that means you have to use the indefinite past. Anoche, which means last night. Anoche, I slept, dormí, 8 hours, 8 horas. Okay? Your verb in the indefinite past in this case is dormí. Anoche dormí 8 horas. Okay? Another phrase, it's all day, which means todo el día. If you want to say all day I was in my house, then in Spanish you gotta say todo el día, all day, I was, estuve in my house, en mi casa. Okay? Next sentence. Next year, I went to Paris. Okay? To say this in Spanish, you gotta say el año pasado, which means last year, I went to Paris. Fui a París. El año pasado, fui a París. Okay, another sentence you have, it's some years ago, I met you. Okay? In Spanish, for saying this, you gotta say hace unos años, which means some years ago. Hace unos años, I met you. Te conocí. Okay? And now the last sentence using the indefinite past is the other day, I found Gael. Okay? To say this in Spanish, you gotta say el otro día, which means the other day. I found, which means encontré. Gael. A Gael. The other day I found Gael. To say this, you have to say el otro día encontré a Gael. Okay? So just be aware about those phrases. So that means you have to use the indefinite past. Ayer, anoche, todo el día, el año pasado, hace unos años, el otro día. Okay? Now let's go to the imperfect past, which are the phrases you have to use or you will find when you're talking about the imperfect past. Okay? Here, those are the phrases. Cuando era niña, when I was a kid, or as a kid, de niña, I ate lots of candies. Comía muchos dulces. Okay, you're talking about when you were a kid, so that's a reason to use the imperfect past, okay? And the verb in the imperfect past would be comía, comía, okay? Cuando era niña, or de niña, I ate lots of candies, which means comía, I ate lots of candies, muchos dulces. Okay? Now, next example you have, when I was younger, I slept very few. Okay, if you want to say this in Spanish, you gotta say cuando era joven or de joven, I slept, dormía, very few, muy poco. Okay, now if you want to say when I was little, I was very naughty, then in Spanish you gotta say cuando era pequeño, when I was little, cuando era pequeño, I was, era, very naughty, muy travieso. Cuando era pequeño, era muy travieso. When I was little, I was very naughty. Okay? Now, the other phrase, it's every day. Every day, I ate vegetable soup. Okay? If you're talking about every day, but you're talking about when you were a kid, then you have to use the imperfect past. Okay? Every day, I ate vegetable soup. Todos los días, comía sopa de verduras. Okay? And finally, we have this phrase before, and then something you were in the past. Before, I was very chubby. So if you want to say that in Spanish, you gotta say antes, before, I was, era very chubby, muy gordito, okay? You're describing how you were in a very long ago past, so you have to use the imperfect past, okay? All right, now let's practice, and I will show you some sentences, so you will tell me which verb you gotta use, the one in the indefinite past or the one in the imperfect past, okay? Here I have this sentence. Yesterday, and then blank, to visit my parents. Ayer, which means yesterday. Ayer, and then blank. A visitar a mis papás. To visit, a visitar my parents. A mis papás. What verb you have to use? The one in blue is the indefinite past, which is fui, or the one in pink, which is the imperfect past and is iba. You have to use ayer fui a visitar a mis papás, or you have to use ayer iba a visitar a mis papás. Which ones do you have to use? Which one? You're talking about visiting your parents in the past. So you gotta use the indefinite past. Pasado indefinido. So the correct sentence is ayer fui a visitar a mis papás. You're talking about something you did in the past. Okay, so you have to use the indefinite past, okay? Here I have another sentence. Yesterday, blank, to visit my parents, but my car broke down. Ayer, yesterday, blank, to visit my parents, a visitar a mis papás, but, pero, you have this but, so what you have to use? The car broke down. Se descompuso el carro. What do you have to use? Indefinite past, fui, or imperfect past, iba. Ayer fui a visitar a mis papás, pero se descompuso el carro, or ayer iba a visitar a mis papás, pero se descompuso el carro. What do you have to use? Yes, you have this phrase ayer, which is of the indefinite past, but you have this but of the imperfect past, so you have to use the imperfect past, okay? So the sentence would be, the correct sentence would be, ayer iba a visitar a mis papás, pero se descompuso mi carro, okay? So the verb in the imperfect past would be iba, okay? Now we have this sentence. When I was a kid, blank, lots of chocolates. De niña, as a kid, or when I was a kid, de niña, blank, muchos chocolates. De niña, muchos chocolates. What would you use? The indefinite past, comí, or the imperfect past, comía. You're talking about when you were a kid, so that means you gotta use the imperfect past, pasado imperfecto. So the correct sentence would be, de niña comía muchos chocolates. De niña comía muchos chocolates. Okay, imperfect past, comía. Now we have this sentence. I remember my grandparents, which means yo recuerdo que mis abuelitos, I remember my grandparents, blank. Then you have to use the verb come, okay, venir, all Christmas, todas las navidades, okay? I remember my grandparents, blank, all Christmas. Yo recuerdo que mis abuelitos, and then blank. You have to use the verb venir, all Christmas. You're talking about something, some memory with your parents, so that means you gotta use indefinite past, vinieron, or imperfect past, venían. Memory about past. Then you gotta use the verb venían in the imperfect past, okay? So the correct sentence would be, yo recuerdo que mis abuelitos venían todas las navidades, okay? You're talking about a memory you had with your parents, so that means you have to use the imperfect past. Now we have this sentence, the other day, which means el otro día, the other day, blank. You have to use the verb to see, okay? And then, your brother, tu hermano, in the movies, en el cine. The other day, el otro día, then blank. Your brother, a tu hermano, in the movies, en el cine. What do you have to use? The verb the, which is in the indefinite past, or the verb veía, which is in the imperfect past. You're talking about something that happened a very long ago, or something that happened in a recent past. You're talking about something that happened in a more recent past. So that means you gotta use the indefinite past, okay? You also have this word, the other day, el otro día, the other day. So that means you have to use the indefinite past, okay? El otro día, vi a tu hermano en el cine. The other day, I saw your brother in the movies, okay? And now we have this sentence. I, blank, which means yo, blank, and then you have to use the verb tener, okay? A very bad day. Un pésimo día. A very bad day. Yo, blank, un pésimo día. You're talking about a bad day. Are you talking about recent past or like super long while ago past? Recent past. So that means you gotta use tuve or tenía. Yo tuve un pésimo día, or yo tenía un pésimo día. You gotta use the indefinite past because you're talking about something that happened in a recent past, okay? Like yesterday. I had a very bad day. Yo tuve un pésimo día. Okay, tuve, it's in the indefinite past, okay? Now we have this sentence. Before he Antes, which means before. He, él, and then blank. Super cute, super lindo. Before, he, antes, él, blank, super lindo. What do you have to use? Fue or era. You're describing how someone was, so that means you have to use antes él fue super lindo or antes, él era super lindo. You have to use the imperfect past, okay? So the correct answer would be él era super lindo. Era. Imperfect past, okay? You're describing how someone was in the past. Now we have this sentence. Some years ago, which means hace unos años. Hace unos años. Okay, some years ago. Blank. You have to use the verb visit, visitar in Spanish, okay? Your sister. What do you have to use? Visité or visitaba. Hace unos años visité a tu hermana or hace unos años visitaba a tu hermana. What verb you have to use? Indefinite past, visité, or imperfect past, visitaba. You have this word hace unos años, okay? And this word is of the indefinite past, so that means you gotta use your verb in the indefinite past, okay? Hace unos años, some years ago. Hace unos años, visité, I visited, visité your sister, a tu hermana. Sorry, okay? Hace unos años, visité a tu hermana. So you gotta use the indefinite past. And now we have this sentence. Last night, which means anoche, last night, I didn't sleep. Anoche no, and then the verb you gotta use is the verb dormir, to sleep. Which form you gotta use? Indefinite past, dormí, or imperfect past, dormía. Anoche no, dormí, okay? You're talking about something that happened in the past, kind of a recent past, so you have to use the indefinite past, okay? So the correct sentence would be anoche no dormí. Anoche no dormí. Yesterday I didn't sleep, okay? Alright guys, so that's all for today's lesson. I really hope it helped you, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!